What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Ari Teaches Drums, where I will be teaching you all facets and fundamentals of drumming. You probably clicked on this video because you're interested in getting better at upstrokes. That's fantastic. Let's get right into it. So first of all, a quick recap on all the main types of strokes. In my fundamental series that I'm creating here for you, so far we've covered legato strokes, downstrokes. There's also upstrokes, which we're going to cover today, and Moeller technique, which I'm going to allude to a little bit today as well. So if you haven't already, feel free to skip back to my first episode about grip, second episode about legato strokes, and my third episode about downstrokes. All of those will come into play as we're trying to learn upstroke technique. So what is an upstroke? An upstroke is a stroke where you play a soft tap note and then you rotate the stick up to a higher point, somewhere up higher. This prepares yourself for an accent. So again, soft tap note, then a rotation back up to the top, and then you're ready for an accent, either a downstroke or a legato stroke. So it's really essentially a setup motion. It's preparing you for an accent after a low piano note, because I can't just teleport up to a forte. I have to travel in some type of way. So I have to start from this low dynamic, and I can't get up here unless I rotate my wrist up. So just like that, and I can get up to that forte height. For something like that, for example, if I've got to go, or something like this. So I've basically already said this, but I want to make it super clear. Essentially, an upstroke is when you start low, and by low, I mean something like only about 1 or 2 inches above the drum head. So that would basically be a piano or pianissimo stroke. And then I'm going from here, and immediately during that motion, after the rebound of that tap, I'm rotating up. So it's not a tap and then I go up. I don't stop. The motion doesn't stop. It's one continuous motion, and that's a big key to getting the upstroke here. It's really critical that that motion upward is quick. If you're really slow with this motion, odds are you're probably going to be late to the next note in a lot of marching percussion music or concert literature that might call for something like this as well. Because if you're trying to do something like this, let's say you have to do a single stroke roll, and then you have an accented forte note coming out of there. That last stroke of the right, that is an upstroke. So I'm doing an upstroke to get up. In slow motion, it would look like this. Legato taps, then an upstroke, and then the forte. So that's only possible with that upstroke motion. So how do I actually do that? Well, for starters, just recognize that an upstroke is literally the mirror opposite of a downstroke. So if you were here for my downstroke episode, you would know that a downstroke is when we start up high and then we come and end down low. After we strike the drum, we control a rebound and the note ends low. The opposite is true for the upstroke. We're gonna start low and end high, like I've already said. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what's really the secret to mastering this technique? How do I master upstrokes? Well, there's no easy answer truly. However, I will share with you everything that I've learned, and I hope you can take something away from it. So there's really, to me, there's 2 elements working together. One, there's the natural rebound that's already occurring from this piano stroke, and then the second element is guiding the stick up after that rebound. And it all becomes one motion. So the rebound occurs. This is how much the stick is rebounding. It only rebounds about this much because I only can send so much energy into the drum head and through the stick to create a piano stroke, right? It's a pretty soft stroke, so there's not a ton of energy moving through the stick. So it's not gonna rebound all the way back up. I have to then guide the stick up in order to reach wherever my desired accent height is. So 2 key things, I've talked about this in every single episode. Tension is the enemy. If you're tense on this start of the stroke and then you're tense to the accent, you're doing something like that, you're only gonna be able to get so fast with this motion, especially if you have to do something like this. If you're tense, everything's gonna start to tighten up, gonna slow down, it's not gonna work out for you. Another thing to recognize is that there's kind of two main approaches when it comes to upstrokes that I've seen. One is a kind of Moeller-esque approach, where on the upstroke, some players will allow a break in the wrist to occur. So if you see this here, as you're playing that tap, you kind of allow your wrist to break, and then you pull the stick up and then come back down for the accent. Some will say that's kind of a slower approach, but there's something about the feel of that a lot of players really like. And so I'm not fully covering Moeller in this video, but that sort of is a precursor to Moeller. Some would even say that is the Moeller stroke, by breaking the wrist and then rotating the stick up. So that's something you could try and find what feels the most comfortable. To me, there's two good approaches and either can work. So that's one option. Kind of more straightforward option is simply what I kind of showed you already, which is you play a top note and then the hinge point is really the wrist, and I don't break the wrist at all other than in this direction. I rotate upward. So I could simply, if I'm trying to do accent taps like this, I could do this upstroke motion all purely just with that wrist. As you get extremely fast, a lot of players will find that kind of wiggle in the wrist of the kind of Moeller, I'm calling it Moeller-esque. Okay, it's kind of like Moeller. Some would even say it is. Some find that much easier as you get really fast, right? And then maybe you're trying to get that motion going. Especially for something like invert flam taps, where slower, I might be able to handle this all with the regular wrist. But if I'm trying to go really fast, then you'll start to kind of see that break of the wrist. At least I see it with myself. And it's just something that kind of naturally starts to happen as you start playing some of these more advanced rudiments. Other common rudiments that are going to be using this upstroke are going to be FUBARs. Those all require upstrokes, and that's because one hand is literally doing this. So to get up for that accent, you have to do an upstroke motion. Another rudiment is Chutichus, because one hand is literally just doing this, and then you alternate them and it turns into. And then same rings true if you just add cheeses on all these. And a cheese is just a double stroke, which I haven't covered doubles yet in my series, but stay tuned. Okay, so before we get into some fundamental exercises to get better at your upstrokes, let's just briefly talk about why do upstrokes matter. So like I just talked about, they're especially important for those key rudiments that show up in a lot of marching repertoire. These can show up in concert repertoire as well, like snare drum solos and that type of thing, invert flam taps, Chutichus, and FUBARs. But there are other rudiments that I'm sure call for this. Like I said, there's a lot of moments like even just doing low single strokes and then coming out to an accent afterward. That's going to require that upstroke on the last stroke at the piano dynamic before the accent. So upstrokes are super important in all of percussion. And particularly in marching percussion, there's really a visual uniformity piece to this with our upstrokes that it adds such a great dynamic to marching percussion when you see an entire drum line using upstrokes in the same approach, whether it is with that Moeller-esque type of approach or the purely wrist-dominated upstroke approach. It really looks way better when a drum line's all doing the same type of approach. And lastly, upstrokes are super critical in order to have better dynamic shaping and musicality. Like I already said, there's tons of passages where you're gonna need to go from a soft dynamic up to a loud dynamic instantly. So that's only possible with the upstroke motion in order to get up to the accent quickly. All right, so let's jump into some exercises for upstrokes. The first one I'll show you guys is something called upstroke motion isolation. So we're just gonna isolate the motion of the upstroke. So all you're gonna do is, just starting on your right hand, play a soft tap, and then rotate the stick to an accent height. I would just say go all the way up for now, so like to about a forte or fortissimo, and practice just the motion. Don't even play the accent yet. So just play the low tap and then rotate up. And just practice this and start to connect it as one motion. So I know there's two steps here. There's the tap and then there's the rotation, but can you make that into one single motion? That's the goal. So that's what you basically want it to look like. I would also say, as I'm watching myself here, be careful about letting your forearm do all the work. Don't forget, in our strokes episodes so far, I've talked about mostly doing everything from the wrist. This is our main hinge point. So as you do this, don't cheat by raising your entire arm up to get there. That might feel easier, but it's actually gonna slow you down at the end of the day if you're trying to do something like invert flam taps. As you notice, as I'm doing that, I can't really lift my arm that high in order to play those. Everything's all within this wrist. Okay, and match grip, same idea. Okay, so practice that on both hands. Practice that isolation on both hands, and just practice getting it faster as well, that isolation. It's very important as you're isolating that you're not playing that tap too loud. You want to keep that nice and soft out of piano dynamic. Another great exercise is just playing 8 on a hand. We've done this exercise, I think, basically in every video so far in different applications. And what you're gonna do is play 7 low legato taps at a piano dynamic. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then on the 8th note, you're going to rotate up for an accent. So essentially the 7th note is an upstroke, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is up, and that prepares me for the accent. So here's a demonstration. And if you know the song Enter Sandman by Metallica, that's what this reminds me of. Dun, 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 dun. And what you want to do is start really slow. The most common mistake is that you're going to crescendo. You're going to kind of cheat to get up for that accent, kind of like this. That's cheating. That's cheating because you're kind of getting there too soon. The point is you want to keep those taps all consistently low for all 7 strokes. Even the upstroke itself is still a piano tap. So that's extremely important that you keep that quality. So I would practice it super slow. Get a metronome on and practice extremely slow just to get the motion and the consistency. Remember, every episode I've said, consistency is key. It's going to be a key part of our success as a percussionist, as a rudimental drummer in everything we do. So I would go even as slow as this. And after that accented notes, just a reminder, I'm basically doing a downstroke. That accented note is downstroke because I'm switching hands. I don't need to continue on that hand, so quick recall to downstrokes, that after that downstroke, my stick is just gonna stay at the set position here. All right, another exercise I'm gonna show you guys is just an inverted accent pattern where we're going to do right, left, 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 and then left, right, right, right. And what you're gonna do is on the first note of every 4, you're gonna play an accent. So it's like this. Up, 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 down, up, gradually speed that up with all these exercises. Gradually speed them up as you get them consistent at one tempo, bump it up another 5 beats or 10 beats per minute, and gradually work it up. You can practice different lengths of those taps as well. So if you want to do every 8, you could do that. If you want to slow it down. Or make it even harder for yourself, every 3. That's really increasing the frequency at which we're doing an upstroke. And then this is where it starts to turn into invert flam taps. Not quite invert flam taps yet, but you could do every 2. So that would be right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right. Or even faster. Even faster. All right, and then lastly, I would encourage you guys to start trying to learn rudiments like invert flam taps, Chutichus, and FUBARs. Quarter note, eighth note, quarter, so like this. The left hand for invert flam taps is just the same thing, but starting with the 2 8th notes. And when you put those together, it turns into this. You do want that flam to be audible. We have not covered flams yet, so this is a little more advanced. But if you do know how to play flams, you would want a flam on the accent by placing the grace note a little earlier. But as it speeds up, it becomes pretty much impossible to nail down that grace note. Some really great players can do it, but especially in the marching arts, it kind of just becomes more like a double stop type of feel. At the faster tempo, it sounds something like this. All right, and then we could also throw a cheese on there. And that involves double strokes. Basically, a cheese is just a double. And then Chutichus, the right hand has to go. Each hand has to go. So that last stroke of the tap piano is an upstroke. And you put those together and you get this. And then you could also throw a cheese on these. All right, and then we've also got FUBARs. These are pretty tricky, and they do involve an upstroke because each hand is doing. And then you put these together and you get. You can also cheese the second accent. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. I hope this video was of value to you. If you found it useful or helpful, please do let me know by liking this video. Also, do drop a comment if you've heard anything different from any drum instructors you've had, or if you think I missed anything in the video, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And lastly, I hope you stay tuned for my fundamental series and more future drum videos by subscribing to my channel here. Thank you so much. Ari Schiller out.